Growing neighborhoods, growing concerns. This week in Boomtown, a local fire department is rising to the challenge, making sure it's ready to respond to any emergency, big or small, to keep you safe. Plus, saving small towns across Ohio and bringing businesses back to Main Street.
It was a lot of vacant storefronts, and someone would move in and then move out, and we didn't have a lot of community interest like we do now.
See how a Central Ohio company is creating a new culture and influencing other cities to do the same. And Columbus is working to meet the growing demand for housing, but at what cost? The apartment complex proposed in German Village, and why some worry that the neighborhood could lose its charm. Central Ohio is certainly booming. We all see it and we all can feel it, from traffic to new homes and crowded schools. Leaders in this region will have to figure out how to embrace nearly 1 million more people in the coming decade. So here's what we uncovered this week in Boomtown. Thanks so much for joining us for This Week in Boomtown. I'm Angela Ann. A lot to get to this week, so let's start with some headlines. The New Albany company just bought 140 more acres in Marysville. This will bring its total investment in the Marysville South Business Park to $35 million. The land could soon host everything from chip suppliers to biotech firms. Huntington Bank is making a big move. The Columbus-based banking giant is expanding into Texas. This week, it announced nearly $2 billion deal to acquire Veritex. Now, this gives Huntington access to one of the fastest growing banking markets in the country. That deal could close as soon as next year. And over in Gahanna this week, we got a first look at the city's future. Take a look at this. Leaders sharing progress on his upcoming civic center, promising easier access to services, better parking, and more modern meeting spaces. It'll also bring City Hall, the police department, and the senior center all under one roof. And this week, plans for a massive housing and commercial project in Pickaway County hit a dead end. Commissioners rejected the annexation of more than 300 acres from Scioto Township into Commercial Point. Now, this is a move that would have cleared the way for 1,200 new homes, apartments, and businesses. The deal collapsed because there wasn't a plan for who would maintain the main access road. Opponents are calling the decision a win for smart development.
It's awesome to see a community come together. I think that people should be encouraged by what we've been able to do to organize and get together with one voice for fighting for our schools and all of that.
Now, the developer can still file a challenge to get this project approved. We are waiting to see if that will happen. This week, Jefferson Township officially broke ground on a new fire station. This will be located on Clark State Road in Blacklick, and this is the first new fire station for that department in nearly 60 years. We spoke with the fire chief this week, and he says the growing population made this expansion necessary.
Over the last 25 years, we've had more than 100% increase in our population. So having this station up here in this area closes that gap on many of the new subdivisions that have gone in the north end of the township.
Jefferson Township Fire serves 16,000 people in that Blacklick area, and the department says it now needs to add jobs to help staff the new station. The goal is to have it open before the end of 2026. Now, this comes as Franklin Township is struggling financially to fund a second fire station on the west side of Columbus. A failed levy just forced the township to close Station 193 on Franklin Road and lay off 5 firefighters. So now there's only one fire station left on Sullivan Avenue that will now have to pick up the extra roughly 6,000 calls for service. This week, work at a construction site in Delaware County came to a screeching halt after a trench collapsed, trapping 2 workers who were installing a sanitation line in a developing neighborhood. Thankfully, the 2 survived, but the fire chief there says these kinds of emergencies are becoming far too common as that area grows. He also told 10 TV's Carla Rogner how the department is now working to stay ahead of this issue and keep you safe.
These are struts. So what happens in a trench scenario, you have to make sure that as we enter that trench, we are shoring up anything that could collapse on us, protecting the rescuers, providing extra protection to the victim, just so that we don't become victims ourselves.
Chief Chris Kovach says these tools, vital to Monday's trench recovery, are new to the BST&G Fire District.
A lot of the equipment that is on this truck, we were able to get a few years ago off of a FEMA grant. And a lot of that was that we were able to justify we need all of this new equipment because of all the growth.
The fire department covers 4 growing towns: Berkshire, Sunbury, Trenton, and Galena.
With growth comes changes. We go on more calls, there's more people, that increases the frequency that our services are needed. Coupled with that is construction incidents.
Firefighters have been training for these types of emergencies, including trench rescues.
You start to run into all these things that are common probably in rapidly growing areas.
And you might have new kinds of emergencies you're responding to with all the construction, but also how do you adapt to how many more people you're serving as people go and live in those new developments?
Absolutely. Our population is, I think it's almost doubled since I've been here. So in 7 years, the population has exploded.
To keep up with the growth and to stay ready to respond to all kinds of emergencies, the BST&G Fire District is building a new station right now on Wilson Road.
We continue to grow and evolve just to meet the new risks and demands that are placed on us.
So this week, we're taking a focus on saving small towns from disappearing in a booming city. This is a real challenge across the country and Ohio, but there's a real resurgence starting to happen, and Bellefontaine, right behind me, is leading the way. A once deserted downtown is now filled with festivals like the Pineapple Palooza and people ziplining down the street. This week, I looked into why the phrase small but mighty is as real as it gets in Bellefontaine. At 600 downtown, their award-winning pizzas bring a constant flow of customers. After all, owner Brittany Saxton is a 6-time world pizza champ and even competed on the Food Network.
We were the only restaurant downtown, but a lot of it was bricks and boards over windows, and I was kind of in the same boat and the skeptic of like, why here? But I think 14 years later, and we have a full downtown, and it's a very vibrant place to be.
Some people say Saxton was the catalyst behind Bellefontaine's resurgence, but she says it wouldn't have happened without a group called Small Nation, a company that's redefining the word revitalization. When you started, Bellefontaine was at an 80% vacancy rate. Today, it's exactly opposite, 88% occupancy. Some people say that's impossible. How did you do it?
A lot of people think that small towns don't want big city amenities, when the truth is those kinds of experiences flourish in neighborhoods like this.
Founder and CEO Jason Dove points to Bellefontaine's historic Opera Block as one example, a 40,000 square foot landmark that once sat empty. It now has all 13 first-floor storefronts filled. How, you ask? Tell me about the Gang of Grandmas.
So we had this group in town of the Gang of Grandmothers that are now starting retail stores. Think chocolate shops, think antique malls, think boutiques. And it's this whole new wave of retirees that said, I don't want to be on a beach in Florida. I want to be in Bellefontaine, Ohio, starting a new business.
I've heard about this group of grandmas.
Yeah.
Are you one of them?
I'm one of them.
Gail Lorette says working again has brought a new spark to her life, seeing businesses thrive in a place she's called home since she was 6. Do you think that's inspired others to relook at Bellefontaine differently?
I think it's inspired others to feel confident that they can open a shop and have the customers they need.
It's a confident Small Nation is now serving up to other small towns.
I fell in love with this downtown because a lot of my mentors and friends were the neighboring businesses that were around it.
Duff's team consults with 24 other cities and towns in Ohio and beyond.
We have some other barriers, but how we can, maybe you do have some things that are very similar we just don't see here.
We were there when city leaders from East Liverpool, Ohio came to see the success for themselves and maybe got a piece of Small Nation's secret.
And I kind of call it the Cracker Barrel effect. If you have a very busy restaurant, you put the gift shop right next to it. Those principles are what we use as foundations and pillars to revitalize a neighborhood or a town.
It's easy to go to the big cities and get the experience, but when the small town, you have a community vibe and it's friends and neighbors, everybody knows each other on the street, and it's a good place to call home.
And when it comes to growth, most people say they're for it, so long as you save the culture.
It's helping a town identify its weird. And weird in my book is a really good thing. It's that unique ability for why that town is special and why people should visit.
And in Bellefontaine, even Bigfoot might have to agree. So we can say now Bigfoot is real, at least in Bellefontaine. All right, just last month, Small Nation got a grant through Jobs Ohio to do even more there. It is now creating a rural development education center in the historic Opera Block right in downtown Bellefontaine. That center will provide training and educational programming for community leaders and entrepreneurs. Well, it is no surprise Columbus certainly growing pretty fast, and so are the neighborhoods that really give it that character. Well, with this growth comes, of course, some growing pains and some tension. This week, a new development is in the works for a prominent spot in German Village. It's called Cedar Square. This here is a 4-story apartment complex that is being proposed right off Livingston Avenue, and it would require demolishing an existing building. 10 TV's Kristen McFarland went to German Village to see how the community is reacting today.
Cobblestone streets and brick buildings, German Village is full of vibrant character, but now proposed apartments have some worried the neighborhood's charm could be lost. German Village feels like it's straight out of a fairy tale from the historic book loft.
We may be in here for hours. It says 32 rooms of books. Can't wait.
To the whimsical design.
You see a lot of care in the architecture. It's very walkable. Lots of floral decorations and plant life and things like that. It makes it feel a little more special.
Every spot tells its own enchanting story.
It's really pretty.
But even the most charming neighborhoods face change. Plans for a 4-story apartment is a plot twist some neighbors say they don't want to see.
I'm skeptical of that myself. I'd like to keep it just like it is.
Some say it would be too tall and too dense for this neighborhood's quaint charm.
There's a lot of people that come here just for that, and they don't want to see the apartments.
City leaders say it's a delicate balance, planning for the future while preserving the story already written in these streets. 10 TV asked Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther for his thoughts on the potential development.
Is this necessary to this area?
Well, we're 200,000 units short in our region, and that's units at every price point. We need more market rate, we need more workforce, we need more affordable housing.
This is just the beginning of the story. No official plans have been made. But for those who've come to love every page of this neighborhood's fairy tale, they're hoping the storyline doesn't change too much.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't want to see things that maybe they grew up with or maybe that they've really learned to love get torn apart.
In German Village, Kristen McFarland, 10 TV News.
This week, people in Columbus got another chance to weigh in on the proposed budget for the capital city. The Columbus finance director says this is the largest capital budget in the city's history. So here's how this could directly impact you. Some priorities that are in this proposed budget include affordable housing, transportation, and CODA's Link Us initiative. And as we learn more about how Central Ohio is booming, we're now getting a better picture of who is moving here, and that is certainly making history today. This week, we heard from the United Way, which says for the first time ever, Franklin County's growth is now being driven by new Americans, and the reason? Opportunity. The world is finding its way to Central Ohio. People from every corner of the globe are moving here, hoping to find work, stability, and possibility.
That's driven by the companies that are here. That's driven by the Ohio State University. And we've been producing about 15,000 net jobs to the metropolitan region every year for the last decade.
Since 2020, Franklin County has welcomed 87,000 new people. And for the first time ever, a stunning 71% are new Americans.
In the short term, I do believe that Columbus, because it's still relatively reasonable housing market, is producing a lot of jobs. People will leave more expensive, larger cities and make their way to Columbus because they see it as a place of prosperity.
And Michael Wilkos with the United Way says these new Americans are finding their slice of the American dream, oftentimes near job centers.
Whitehall is now growing for the first time in 50 years. And to put in perspective, just one Columbus neighborhood of Northland, that neighborhood over 10 years added only 484 housing units, but 13,671 people moved into just that one Columbus neighborhood.
Well, certainly housing still an issue in this region, but here's something else we learned from that event at the Columbus Metropolitan Club. For the first time ever, the metro area is now losing American-born residents to other cities, and our birth rate is starting to slow down. Well, now let's talk about finding these new people a place to live. Recently, we found out rent prices actually went down in Columbus, but that doesn't mean they're cheap. We asked several people what they pay for in rent, and the answers range from less than $1,000 to more than $2,000 a month. Analysts say the decrease in price isn't so much a trend as it is really just a correction of prices.
I think Columbus is coming off of a higher peak. There was a lot of activity in Columbus, a lot of people moving to Columbus from more expensive East Coast metros that drove up rent. And it took a while for new inventory to come online and for rents to stabilize.
So this week, we also learned that Columbus is dropping in the rankings of the best cities to rent in. The website Rent Cafe looks at the best cities to live in based on things like affordability and jobs. Columbus now ranks 85th on that list. Last year, we were at 74. Rent Cafe says factors like high rents, lower incomes, and worse air quality played a role in that demotion. We do want to hear from you if you have any questions or concerns related to Central Ohio's rapid growth, or maybe there's something you want us to look into. Simply text us your questions at 614-460-3345. And if you happen to be watching us on our YouTube channel, make sure you hit like and subscribe. You can also drop your questions right there in the comment section as well. Well, that's all for this episode, but thanks so much for watching This Week in Boomtown. I'm Angela Ann. We'll see you again next week.